geriatrics, and palliative care. And she has also excelled very much in her field. As a medical educator, our speaker is a Professor 5 in the University of Santo Tomas, Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, and currently serves as the chair of the Department of Preventive and Family Community Medicine in the same hospital, and also in Rizal Medical Center. And also, she holds very significant leadership roles, including serving as the OIC of the Professional Education and Training Office at Quirino Memorial Medical Center, chairing the Department of Family and Community Medicine in UST, our institution in Quirino as well. And her passion for advancing palliative care and geriatrics is evident in her leadership roles in establishing palliative care services and geriatric centers in Quirino Memorial Medical Center and Rizal Medical Center. Her expertise in family medicine, geriatrics, and palliative care is widely recognized, and her dedication to advancing these fields has made significant impact on both education and healthcare in the Philippines. Please join me in welcome Dr. Maria Teresa Trisha Guison Bautista.
Thank you for that very kind introduction, Dr. Castro. Okay, let me just share my slides. Well, I hope everyone has eaten their lunch, and but not too much that they will fall asleep. It is actually a good time to. It's a good time to sleep. No, it's 1 o'clock. I'll try to also be informal in this presentation. And sorry, merong high presenter. Can you see already?
Yes, no.
Okay, I think this is it. Let me just check. So again, thank you for this invitation. I actually thought this was only for RMC and didn't realize it was like a consortium of sorts. Okay, so as I mentioned, I hope to just be quite informal and casual about the discussion para hindi masyadong nakakaantok, correct? And the topic is really, I think, very timely because we're seeing a lot of cases already, especially in neonatal population. Okay, so caring for children with life-limiting conditions demands profound compassion. And I have witnessed colleagues, including myself, to be deeply moved and affected when they interact with these children and their families. Now, I've seen residents also cry after a short discussion with the children and their parents. And in this talk, we will explore how to bring comfort, hope, and meaning to these fragile lives. So by the end of this session, we'll try to cover key principles in pediatric palliative care, discuss the unique needs and strategies that ensure every child receives dignified, supportive care. So let's start with the philosophy of pediatric palliative care, or PPC. It is the active total care of the child's body, mind, and spirit, which is actually what you already do as pediatricians, and supporting the family as well. It is about preventing and minimizing suffering. I hope you capture that. You prevent the suffering. We don't wait for the child to suffer before we intervene. Okay. So it begins at diagnosis, again, another key point here, and continues throughout the entire course of a child's life and sometimes even beyond. So it is not solely about end of life. It affirms life by supporting the child's and family's goals for the future, including hopes for cure, sometimes life prolongation, and or improvement in the quality of life. Okay. Palliative care is ideally integrated into the care of any child with a potentially life-threatening condition such as progressive conditions for which curative treatment is possible but may fail. So pwedeng hindi mag-take effect yung gamot or gamutan. So we know these cases may also die, right? Who are these cases? These are children with cancer, those awaiting organ transplantation, and other complex conditions like congenital heart disease. Those with non-progressive, irreversible conditions with extreme vulnerability to health complications. So we see some patients with developmental disabilities like severe cerebral palsy or hypoxic brain injury. Those with chronic progressive conditions for which long-term palliative care can help maintain quality of life. So hindi masyadong uso yung cystic fibrosis, but we see patients also with some muscular dystrophy and other progressive neuromuscular diseases. And lastly, progressive conditions without any curative options. And these are the genetic disorders. So basically all progressive conditions, okay, that may have some treatment, but there's still a chance that it will not take effect. And those without any treatment. And also those non-progressive but irreversible. Knowing when to involve the palliative care can be challenging. While end-of-life discussions often happen during crisis, they're best initiated during periods of stability, hoping for the best while preparing for all possibilities. So we often receive referrals pag medyo late na, pag malapit na sila no, na mamatay. But it says here, it is best initiated during periods of stability. Palliative care can be introduced prenatally with a life-threatening fetal diagnosis, at any new life-threatening diagnosis when the disease-modifying treatment loses effectiveness, or when disease burden impacts the quality of life. So consider palliative care for children with complex decision-making needs. Hindi sila makadecide, no? Disrupted developmental milestones, families experiencing significant life stage disruptions, or when communication within a large team is difficult. Yung maraming on-board na disciplines or specialties. Okay. Now, integrating palliative care leads to demonstrably better quality of life, especially at the end of life. Now, clinical guidelines already strongly recommend its early inclusion alongside standard medical care. So even while the patient is undergoing curative treatment, it is already a good time to integrate palliative care. And we are grateful to the Department of Pediatrics in RMC for the early onboarding of our palliative care team in their patients. Now, management cannot be provided by doctors alone. It should be a holistic, interprofessional team approach, assisting children, families, and caregivers in fulfilling their physical, psychological, social, developmental, educational, and spiritual goals while remaining sensitive to personal, cultural, and religious values, beliefs, and practices. As you can see, it's so extensive that the doctor cannot just attend to all of these. That's why we need to navigate our patients and their families to other professions. And we need teamwork to be able to give that comprehensive management. Now, this is not only available in tertiary care facilities, it should be available in community-based health centers and even in their homes. And that is the reason why we also need to benchmark in other countries, because many countries are far advanced in the provision of palliative care. Now, effective communication is one of the biggest challenges, if not the biggest challenge, in pediatric palliative care. Just put yourself in the shoes. How do you explain a life-limiting illness to a child or a teen who asks you, gagaling pa ba ako? Okay, will I get better? It's a common heartbreaking question. So just at this moment, how do you answer that kind of question? Now, these conversations are incredibly tough, right? And the easiest way to sometimes respond to this is to evade it. I-ignore mo na lang siya. Now, crucially, they are essential for shared decision-making, ensuring the child and family's values are at the heart of their care. Mastering these communication skills is vital for truly compassionate and family-centered care. And this is going to be actually the focus of this talk, all right? The first step in effective communication in PPC is to build trust. It starts with genuinely getting to know the child and their family, their hopes, their fears, and what matters most to them. This relationship is the bedrock of everything that follows. Even if you are the best and most skilled doctor, if there is no trust, there is no solid relationship with the patient and the family, all this will crumble. They will not concede to your plan. Okay? Now, trust allows for open and honest conversations, which are again vital for shared decision making. So we're not just here treating ABCs, we are here to care for a child and a family. And that means developing care plans based on their goals for the total care, not just focusing on a single clinical problem. Here are some important questions for exploring a patient and family's goals of care. We will go through this one by one. Now, first, if the child is conversant, okay, talk to them directly. You say, tell us about yourself before you became ill. Kwento mo naman sa akin kung paano ikaw bago ka nagkasakit. Ano mga ginagawa mo doon? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? Otherwise, you extract this information from the parents. Allow me to share my experience taking care of a 14-year-old with advanced cancer. Also in RMC Pediatrics, a referral from them, who was withdrawn, evasive, and non-communicative. So the resident was already telling me, Doc, hirap na akong kausapin tong pasyente to. Ayaw niya akong pansinin. No eye contact. Ayaw niya makipag-usap. Okay. She was a grade 8 student who misses her classmates so much, no? And who loves the music of Itchy Worms. Although nung kinakwento na ito, hindi ako makarelate. Because, of course, obviously not my generation. Especially their song titled Dear. Sabi niya, yun daw ang paborito niyang kanta. She also is into YouTube and K-pop, right? So I was also just trying to put myself in her shoes. Okay, so that's getting to know the background of your patient. Okay, now the second question is, what is your understanding of the illness and what does it mean to you and your family? Now the patient said, may bukol po ako sa tiyan, kaya lumalaki ang tiyan ko. While her mother responded, cancer daw po, kumalat na. Pero wag po natin sabihin sa kanya. Here we see the mother believes that not telling or non-disclosure is the best for her child. When in fact, the teenager already has an insight into the seriousness of her illness. Now there is dissonance already, presenting a concern to us as physician in terms of communicating to these patients and the family. Now for question 3, in light of your understanding, base sa inyong pagkakaunawa sa inyong sakit, what is the most important regarding your child's care? Anong pinaka-importante sa iyo regarding sa iyong gamutan? To you and to your family. Now, what did the mother say? Importante po ay gumaling siya at makauwi na sa bahay. And the patient also wishes to go home and resume school. Here you see again, while the mother knows the gravity of the condition, the answers reveal unrealistic expectations. Then when I asked, what are your hopes and fears? The mother said, wag po natin sabihin sa kanya kasi madedepress siya mapaghihinaan lang siya ng loob. Okay? The patient similarly responds, hindi na po ako gumagaling. Balik-balik na ako dito sa ospital. Natatakot po sina mama. Okay? Here we note that the child is actually very perceptive of the situation. Despite the parents' protective lying, I call it protective lying, or withholding of information, there is also incongruence or inconsistencies of their answers. Because the parents want to get well and resume normalcy, and yet they somehow know that cure is unlikely. So our goals of care here is to reframe, restructure their hopes and expectations. Now, parents of seriously ill children hold diverse beliefs about what it means to be a good parent in this situation. A key challenge is that a change in prognosis often requires a shift in goals. Yung una, pwede pang magamot, tapos biglang ngayon, wala na, hindi na effective yung mga curative treatments and you want to focus on comfort and quality of life. This kind of transition can be incredibly difficult for physicians. It is crucial to understand and respect where parents are in this process of accepting the illness and to help them navigate this shift or pivot, including supporting and regulating their hopeful thinking, which is a natural and often necessary coping mechanism. Now, when we explore what it's been like the past few weeks and what they are anticipating in the coming days, weeks, or months, it is important to acknowledge the challenges they have faced and the complex emotions they are likely experiencing. The journey or the illness trajectory with its ups and downs takes a toll. Now, we assure them that it is okay to feel overwhelmed, scared, even angry, or a mix of any of these emotions. Because sometimes when they start pouring out their feelings, we tend to, get numb, or we also freeze, and we forget to validate those feelings. And when they are angry, we become scared because they might, complain about us. That is totally fine, no? But we need to acknowledge that anger. And that kind of connection is important in the relationship that we are building with our patients and their families. Now, we need to let them know that we are here to explore those feelings, to anticipate what might lie ahead, and to support them through it all. Now, beyond the child's experience, we must also acknowledge the immense struggles parents face. Mahirap yung role ng magulang. The constant worry, the overwhelming stress, the anxiety, all these can really be beyond words. Parents may cope in different ways. Sometimes through social isolation. Hindi na sila nagpapakita sa ward. And we judge this or we interpret this as they're running away from their responsibility or they're indifferent. Okay. But sometimes they struggle to express their emotions. And there's often a profound sense of grief and loss, especially when hopes for a cure diminish. It is very important that we recognize these burdens and offer support not just to the patient, to the child, but to the entire family. Now, the impact of a child's serious illness ripples outwards, affecting other members of the family. The strain on the spousal relationship can also be significant. There are increasing care demands. There can be a communication breakdown. There is also reduced intimacy because there's less contact time between the couple. It takes a toll, a burden on them. Siblings may feel neglected or resentful, struggling to understand why their brother or their sister receives so much attention. Parang napabayaan na sila. And the parents themselves may experience increasing isolation, withdrawing from many activities due to the caregiving burdens and the fear of judgment. And all the more when there are very limited resources, walang mapaghingan ng ibang tulong, sila-sila lang. We must address these family-wide effects to provide truly holistic care. Now, beyond the emotional and relational challenges, families, of course, face significant practical difficulties. The financial strain can be immense, mounting medical bills, medication costs, lost income due to caregiving responsibilities. There can be also issues on time management, which becomes a constant struggle, balancing the child's needs with work, household chores, taking care of other siblings, and even basic self-care. Minsan hindi na nga sila nakakapag-supply, nakakaligo. Alright. And the daily routine is often completely disrupted. The constant hospital visits, the appointments, the demands of complex medical regimens. I hope we can start imagining all of these complicating the medical management. These practical challenges can add another layer of stress for families already facing so much. I am saying all these because we can be tempted to be judgmental of the parents. Let us extend more understanding by hearing them out with unconditional positive regard. Now, teenagers, back to the story of this 14-year-old with advanced cancer, like my patient, face unique challenges. School and peer interaction are vital, yet their illness often disrupts both, leading also to isolation, acting out, withdrawal, and other high-risk behaviors. Personalized communication and usually using storytelling, relatable stories can help warm up the conversations. I remember how this patient finally opened up. If you recall, I was saying she was non-communicative. Hindi na nag-eye contact, ayaw makipag-usap. When I asked her, "Are you praying?" Biglang tumungo siya. Now, she nodded her head. And I said, "What are you praying for?" And she said, "I'm praying to get well." I said, "What are the other things you prayed for in the past?" Then, nagsalita siya about school, pumasa po sa exam. And I think I remember she was saying something about to have her own guitar. And then, sabi ko, "Meron ka na bang gitara?" Sabi niya, "Wala." So, ibig sabihin ba nito, all prayers are answered? Or naka-experience ka na ba na yung prayer mo hindi nasagot? And she said, marami na. Okay. And so that became a window for the conversation. I said, God would want to answer all our prayers, but sometimes there is a perfect time. And there are reasons why sometimes hindi natin natatanggap yun. Because he has a better plan. And then I said, if he doesn't answer your prayer of getting well, what are your hopes? What are your dreams? And that's when she started, opening up. Now, open, honest, and honest communication tailored to their understanding is essential for shared decision making. I believe that that kind of conversation, that dialogue really hit her, naintindihan niya. Okay? And these strategies help the teenager to open up about death, which eventually facilitated the mother's acceptance, highlighting the power of storytelling and customized communication. Adolescents under 18 with decision-making capacity, just like this patient, should be included in their care decisions, even though parental approval is still needed. So their verbal consent would still matter. Those over 18 in pediatric programs are now treated as adults. Guardianship must be verified for those lacking capacity. Adolescents with terminal illnesses generally want to be involved in these choices. So when talking with them, remember they experience a wide range of emotions, often caught between wanting independence and feeling dependent due to their illness. They may feel isolated from healthy peers and friends and benefit greatly from connecting with others who are also going through these similar challenges. Now, activity-based groups and creative outlets like art, music, writing can all be helpful. So when she was asked again, what are your hopes and fears? She was now more open to expressing herself. She revealed that her wish list included a K-pop party with a samgyup set up because she hasn't experienced or she has never been in a samgyup place, and to experience how it is to own her own guitar. So we turned all of these desires into a reality in our dietary section. We just cannot put into words how much happiness it brought to her and to her mother and to the palliative care team. Now, it's just sad, but we are again, not regretting any of it because she passed on 2 weeks later. So she passed on 2 weeks after these photos were taken. So for us palliative care providers, this may reflect the best possible quality of life. So lastly, last question, sample question that you can ask the family or the patient is, where do you find support and strength? Now, whether it's family, friends, faith, support groups, or creative outlets, identifying the sources of strength is vital. Informing them that we're here to help them connect with those resources and build a support network can be well appreciated. Now, families, as mentioned, facing pediatric palliative care need strong support. This includes social networks and essential services like respite care, yung pwedeng mag-substitute pag pagod na silang mag-alaga, yun yung tawag, respite care. Of course, financial aid, and sometimes individual counseling. Supportive family members offering practical and emotional help are very vital. Crucially, we must also care for the caregiver's well-being, their physical and mental health as well. Now, children are not miniature adults. I'm sure you know that because you're all in pediatrics. Their developmental differences from infancy to adolescence shape their understanding of illness. Iba yung perspective ng school-age child and high school student, right? While remarkably resilient, Many children in palliative care have rare complex conditions. Okay, and these factors, developmental, resilience, and underlying diagnosis, all these significantly impact diagnosis, prognosis, treatment, communication, decision making, and making predicting their future particularly difficult. And this is totally in contrast when managing adults in palliative care. Now, when talking with children about their care, involve them at a level they can understand. Even young children can express preferences. Honest, developmentally appropriate explanations about what's happening, maybe using drawing, pictures, okay, or not graphs, but maybe shapes and physically, emotionally, even spiritually, can significantly reduce their anxiety and increase their comfort. Because without full disclosure, okay, the child and family cannot participate in decision making about treatment choices. When, what, and how to disclose information to children must consider the child's and the family's cultural or religious values, the parents' choices of what the child can be told, and the child's capacity and desire to understand. Now we need to speak their language. Here in this photo, you'll see a school-age child cooperates more when given opportunities to simulate play or to participate in choosing the timing or even room location for a particular intervention. Examples are the use of counting marbles to represent their pain scale. Pag isa lang ang hawak na marble, mababa lang yung pain niya. Pag lahat ng 10 marbles hawak niya, then he must be in intense pain. Now, if the child requests to hug a doll or hug a teddy bear or whatever she wishes, then we give into this request in order for him or her to cooperate during a particular procedure. These are compromises and forms of exercising their autonomy. Now, when talking with preteens, 10 to 12 years old, remember they value direct communication. They're acutely aware of feeling different from their peers and may put on a brave face just to protect their parents and their families. Creating a safe space to explore their fears, hopes, and expectations is crucial. They may benefit from connecting with other kids facing similar problems or similar health conditions, sometimes even away from their parents. Ayaw nilang kasali pa yung parents nila dun sa interaction na yan. And as mentioned, there are creative outlets that we can also engage in to be productive diversions from their main issues. And this includes reading, playing, drawing, music. All these can be helpful. Okay. Now, our interventions in pediatric palliative care prioritize comfort, quality of life, and psychosocial well-being. All of these are goals in palliative care. This means proactive symptom management. As mentioned, palliative care is the prevention and minimization of the suffering. Okay, so we need to address the pain, nausea, fatigue, and other distressing symptoms even before they occur, using both pharmacologic and non-pharmacologic approaches. So physical care is, of course, the cornerstone of palliative care, as we cannot ensure or guarantee quality of life when their physical body is in distress. So, mahirap makipag-counseling kung merong nararamdamang sakit dyan yung bata. So, we need to ensure there is physical comfort first, right? So, next is we offer emotional and spiritual support to the child and family. This includes complementary and integrative therapies like maybe massage, music therapy, mindfulness, when appropriate and desired. We also facilitate access to resources like maybe other specialists, child life specialists, social workers, and creative arts therapists. Our goal is to maximize each child's quality of life, however they define it, because this is very subjective. It depends really per child, okay, and even per family. And we need to support the entire family throughout this journey. Now, I am towards the last couple of slides, and maybe one of the important things is to always ensure that every intervention we consider must align with the child and family's goals of care. Every time the team gets confused, our North Star would always be the goals of care. Babalik tayo dun sa ano bang goals of care natin. Pag sinabi nilang comfort na sila, wag na natin silang guluhin pa. When they are already solid on their decision that they want the child to be comfortable, okay, that's going to be our guide. As I mentioned, that's going to be our North Star. Okay, is this intervention going to align with that particular goal? Okay, we need to honestly ask, will this intervention maintain or improve their health and quality of life? Or could it unintentionally prolong suffering? Now let's talk through the what ifs, the potential benefits and burdens to address any worries. We should be able to discuss what to expect in the future and develop a care plan that anticipates potential needs, focusing on maintaining comfort. It is common to have questions like, gagaling pa ba ako? Gagaling pa ba ang anak ko? Is there more we can do? What are your biggest worries? These are important questions and we're here to explore them together. And these are the things that we can tell our family. Nandito po kami to help you sort out these worries and problems. Okay? Now, in closing, pediatric palliative care is guided by these core principles. Children deserve care that avoids undue burden without potential benefit. I'm sure we weigh the benefits and harms, but sometimes there's always this feeling that what if we can do this and maybe, this child will still see this and all. We just need to lay down the cards for the child and for the parents, okay? Effective pain and symptom management using both medication and non-pharmacologic methods is paramount, okay? Sometimes there is fear of giving medications, especially opioids. Sabihin natin, baka whatever, no? For whatever reason, baka ma-addict or... Remember, our goal is comfort. Then we should not hesitate giving these medications to them, okay? Of course, we can do the ladderized pain management, but when we see it's no longer working, okay, we can always do a trial and we can always step down if in case the patient's been responding. Maybe the patient can also be weaned off from the pain meds. Every child must be treated with dignity, respect, and privacy. Adolescents' needs and their role in decision-making are planned proactively. And finally, we are committed to resolving disagreements through negotiation and, when necessary, some ethical consultation. Our focus remains on providing the best possible care for every child and family we serve. These are my references for this talk, and for the sake of our pediatric patients and their families, let us remember to navigate them to seek palliative care early in the course of their illness. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm willing to take in some questions.
So thank you very much, Dr. Bautista. So do we have any questions for our speaker? Okay, I'll start the ball rolling because I have questions regarding this. So this is a actually very interesting field that I think has been very up and coming and has been actually quite a little bit, for lack of a better word, neglected in the past previously, because we have not the common misconception is that palliative care is really just for end of life, especially for pediatric palliative care. And we've actually encountered patients who are resistant to 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 receive palliative care because it means that for them it initially means that this is a death sentence, quote unquote. However, it is gaining ground, and there's very emphasis in the holistic management, and that the patients should be involved in their care, especially the adolescents, and also that this is discussed even at the start of the disease or the diagnosis. So my question, Doc, for Dr. Bautista, one is, how do you deal with patients with disruptive family dynamics, which is common, at least in our setting. We have encountered this in Rizal Medical Center in particular, wherein there are many patients who need to receive this care. However, they have probably a a problematic family dynamic, so it's difficult to ensure the support, and it's difficult for the family to actually understand or grasp, even for the caregiver for the healthcare professional. You have to talk with so many sides because they're not in congruence. So how do you advise to deal with such patients? And for my second question, I think palliative care has especially in pediatrics, has been centered, or the focus is mostly for hematology oncology patients. However, we do acknowledge that there are non-hema onco patients who actually need this care. So what is your experience regarding those who are not cancer patients receiving the pediatric palliative care?
So for the first question, um, admittedly, that's also a very challenging scenario. Yung may mga difficult family dynamics. Minsan nga hindi pa sila kasal eh. So, yung challenge na who really decides when they're not even legally married. But then, what we do really is to find the strengths in that family setup. You just have to have that very optimistic perspective. There must be something good in this family. And so we try to look at that brighter side, because that's where we will draw some of the possible solutions. Because pag lahat you consider as kawawa naman to, wala talaga. Wala ka mapaghugutan na kahit na. Then it's going to be a dead end for for the management in this case. So first is we do some family assessment, and we have some tools to somehow analyze, identify the strengths, as mentioned, of the family, the resources that are available, not just material resources, but as I mentioned, it can be their belief system, it can be even outside their own family structure. So these things. And then we sort it out for them. We help them sort it out through family counseling. Sometimes if it's not possible to do that, just for individual counseling. And we talk to the person in the family with the most, influence in decision making. So sometimes it's difficult because the ones who are caring for the child has really no voice in the decision-making process. And yung parang sabihin mong sayang naman yung usapan natin dito, hindi naman pala siya part of, not really part of that entire process. So it's important to really identify who in that family setup would be the best person to talk to, and who will be able to mobilize the available resources. So that somehow makes it more efficient when it comes to addressing the family dynamics. See, we're not there to instantly fix the problem, right? In the family, some are deeply rooted, and we don't have enough time to do that. So we just do yung highly impactful strategy already. Now, The other one is, ano na nga yun?
Your experience, Doc,
Alright.
regarding those who are
Okay.
not hema-onco patients but requiring palliative care.
Okay. Actually, from your department, we've been receiving referrals already, especially those with genetic disorders, with congenital malformation. Um, how do we deal with them? It's not really different because the principle remains the same. It is always towards quality of life. All right. Now, ang pagkakaiba lang is sometimes the uncertainty of the prognosis. So, because in cancer, there are literature, there's more literature to say, if you do this treatment, you can extend this, these things, and the outcomes can be more palpable or be supported with literature. Unlike the more rare conditions, it's so unpredictable. Yun siguro yung challenging when taking care of them. And it's broader, no? Especially multiple congenital anomalies. That's kind of complicated. And when you walk them through the possibilities, yung mga what to anticipate, it can really be overwhelming for the parents. We attempt that na ito po ang mga posibleng mangyari, no? Kapag ganito, etc. You create different scenarios. And we realize that it can be too much for the family. They can only handle so much, no, at a certain point. So unlike cancer, ang iniisip lang nila, basta ma-cancer free. Alright. Iba yung, siguro yun yung difference. But technically, the philosophy remains the same. The quality of life is utmost important, including the caring for the family.
Thank you, Dr. Bautista. Do we have any more questions? You can type your questions in the chat box, or you can kindly raise your hand so that we'll give you the floor to ask your questions. We're actually very grateful in Rizal Medical Center because we have you to refer to regarding this. So I hope the other institutions will also have such access to palliative care specialists, especially for pediatrics. So any more questions?
Maybe I'll take this opportunity to advertise.
Yes, Doc, sure.
Because we also render virtual consultation for palliative care. So if in case some institutions don't have that service, or for whatever reason it's not accessible, they can reach out to we have a Facebook page, that's the Rizal Med Family Medicine in Facebook now. They just message and they just indicate that this is for palliative care. And obviously it's for free naman.
Thank you very much, Doc. So for our partner institutions here in the MMEI, so this service is available for everyone. So we'll kindly coordinate also with our residents so that we can also facilitate the referral to Dr. Bautista. Thank you. Any
Anytime.
more questions?
Baka busog na busog sila sa lunch. Kaya...
Pwede na. Or ano lang talaga daw, palliative care is actually a very a little bit sensitive topic, no? There's so much dimensions to it that we really need to learn more about it. So any more questions po? Okay, if none, we would like to thank Dr. Bautista for this very, very detailed lecture. It's very informative, and we appreciate that the services will be extended outside of our institution and also to our partner institutions in the MMEI. So I hope we have made that aware to everyone right now. So we hope to get more referrals in the future. And as a token of our gratitude, we'd like to award this certificate to Dr. Maria Teresa Tricia Guison Bautista of Rizal Medical Center in recognition of her invaluable contribution as speaker at the MMEI lecture series supporting fragile lives, indications and strategies for compassionate care. So it's on pediatric palliative care, wherein she shared her knowledge and expertise and insights. Awarded this 20th day of February 2025, Rizal Medical Center, Pasig, with the following signatories. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Bautista.
Thank you also.
And do you have any announcements? We kindly asking everyone to accomplish again the attendance, the pre-test, and the post-test. We have our QR codes and our links are posted in the chat box. We can also send these personally to post them in the MMEI Viber group. So if none, again, thank you very much, Dr. Bautista. And would like to play the PPSCMS for closing. Are there any announcements on our end? Dr. Salantes, Dr. Salud, wala naman. Okay, so thank you very much everyone who attended this lecture series, and we will end right after this Philippine Pediatric Society. Thank you very much.